Hi, I'm Gunilla Norris, and I've written a book called Match. It's a book about how to bring the will and the heart into alignment. Now, the reason I wrote the book is because I've been a psychotherapist for over 30 years, and I've discovered in my work that people have a hard time keeping a focus on what they really truly desire in a consecutive and focused manner. And so I thought, for myself as well as for my clients and my friends, could I come up with a method that would so appeal to one's desire that um, you would be willing to practice? The book is a 90-day practice. First of all, there's a difference between what our mind wants and what our heart wants. So when we take the time to really enter into our heart and are quiet enough so that our minds stop chattering and our hearts have a way to feel and think, we might discover that there's a longing in there, a real yearning for something that's more than our routines and what we think we have to do. Usually those longings are not about, oh, I want a new car or a home or a job or a partner. Usually it's about, I want to grow, I want to know, I want to serve, I want to be more loving. It has to do more with feeling toned qualities. And so when we reach those places in us, I find that everything else follows. It could be anything that you did consecutively. But the reason I like this so much, there's a reason for it. You can read about it in the introduction of the book. But it's because it's a hands-on practice. It's visual. You can also hear when the match is struck. You can smell the sulfur. You can see your image. And it involves all of you. So let me show you what we do. You get an ordinary box of matches. Usually you get it in the hardware store. I like to cover the box with something plain like this, because I can work on this more easily than directly on the box. So when this is put together, the box looks like this. But inside, before we make our bundles, it looks like this. Lots and lots of matches. We're going to dump them out. Empty box. This empty box can be decorated on the inside too. But you're going to make 3 bundles. You're going to make a bundle of 21 matches, a bundle of 19 matches, and a bundle of 50. I'll tell you why this is important. It takes about 21 days to start a habit. 19, if you add 19, you get 40 days, which is the classical amount of time that anything is established. And then the 50, really, it takes 3 months to have something really begin. Most people don't understand that it's day to day to day to day, and that with each day, something is developing that's below our thinking mind. It's deeper than our thinking mind. So when I look at all these matches, I think, well, these are days of my life, because I've been doing this practice for 25 years. Each match is a whole day. And when I focus on these deep longings in me and give them the time every morning, they deepen. And somehow what my heart knows is brought to me more than what my mind tells me. And you will discover when you do this practice that things change a little bit. Your box won't be exactly the way it was in the beginning. You might add to it. You might take away from it. You might change your words. And so there you have it. You have your bundle. You have your matchbox. You have your bundle. You have your words. It's all in there. And now it's not just a matchbox. It's your matchbox. It's your longing expressed in a humble sort of way. Now, why a matchbox? Well, for me, all my books are about household things. So that ended up, this is a household thing. You can find pictures in magazines and you can draw yourself. But what if you don't get anything when you sit there and listen to your heart? What if it's completely blank? Well, don't fret. Just start with no image. Just like that. And strike your matches. Something will come that feels just right. Now, there's a hitch to this. If you forget one match, you have to start all over. Because it's 90 consecutive days. And that's a kind of training. Anything we really want to learn, we have to do it consecutively. I want you to meet Stanley, who has just begun the practice.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, what made you want to do the practice?
Well, I like to do things that people find is a good thing. So if I find them doing it, I might want to do it too. I've talked to many people who've done this, and they all seem excited about it, and they continue doing it. So I thought, maybe I can get some of this. So I thought I'd try.
Oh, I'm glad you are trying it. What are you finding that it's so satisfactory to you?
I find that I do it every day. I haven't missed a day yet. There's a penalty if you miss a day. I don't worry about that. I like to think about the thing that is the issue, the point of my lighting the matches. I enjoy thinking about it. It's not a problem I'm having that I want to solve. So it's something enjoyable I want to continue.
And do you find that you're thinking about what your focus is during the day in addition to when you strike the match?
Yes, quite a lot. Every time I see somebody strike a match.
What are you finding that's difficult about the practice?
The matchbox isn't exactly the way I want it. But since you can always change it, or throw it away, that doesn't bother me too much. I miss talking to other people about it.
Ah, you're raising a wonderful point, because there are groups who work together like this, and they share their experience. So I'm very glad you said that, and I hope you'll match up with somebody.
I hope so too. Maybe I can get a name from you.
I will certainly give you one. Thank you so much, Stanley. Mark has been doing the practice with a group, and so let's talk to him. It's good to have you here.
Thank you for asking me.
And I'm wondering what you felt was useful to you in doing this practice in the group.
Never thought I'd be asked these questions about this, but I am very appreciative of having done it in a group. First of all, I'm a group type of person. Secondly, I knew the members of the group, which I think makes a lot of difference to me. If I hadn't known them, maybe it would have colored it differently. But I think being in a group also added a dimension of formality or ritual to it, and kept me at it. It expanded my perspective. Hearing other people's thoughts about it made it a much richer experience in the beginning.
Was there anything particularly difficult about the practice for you?
Anything that is demands persistence is difficult for me. So I found
You're not alone.
I found in the match process, it was so direct, understandable, and straightforward that was easy to overcome. And so the persistence became practice. So I really appreciated its simplicity, I guess.
Did you have to start many times over?
I did in the beginning, and now I do it with enjoyment. I get to the end of a session and realizing back at the beginning, and it all seems actually quite fresh and new from the beginning. So I don't mind starting over.
Oh, that's great. Have you had any advice for someone who's thinking about doing this practice? What kind of advice would you give?
I would say keep your expectations both low and high. So because it's simple, people, including me, probably are amazed that it can produce the results it produces. So to me, it was one way to insist that I was in touch with myself for a few seconds a day. Um, but my expectations were exceeded by the fact that that small act was rich, complex, and turned, I guess it, to me, was almost became like a prayer. So just a simple act, which I still try to do regularly, and it is a marvelous inspiration.
Well, I'm thrilled that 3 people who have done this practice a long time are with us to share their experience. It's Pam, Laurie, and Diana. I'm going to start asking Pam some questions. You're a devout Christian, I know, and I've been wondering whether this practice interferes with your religious beliefs.
Not at all. This practice actually enhances my Christian beliefs. The use of an image on the box. Some of my boxes have had Christian images on them. Others, not so much. And the Matchbox has taken me into a deeper relationship with the sacred.
Thank you. Laurie, you've been doing this practice a long time, and before I knew you, you were doing something like this, and now you lead groups. Tell me your experience about teaching this to groups.
When I began doing this practice, it was based on the teachings of the Dalai Lama that I was, when I was visiting in India, and he talked about changing a behavior into a habit, and that if the world could practice compassion daily and turn it into a habit, the world would find peace. So when I came home, I created a matchbox for my own practice with the intention every day of practicing compassion for myself, striking the match, practicing, reviewing my intention, and then practicing it throughout the day is how my very simple practice was before I met you, Gunilla. In groups, I work at a prison and also at a shelter, and we also use the 90-day practice of an intention that can be as simple as I will praise my children today, and if it's if that intention is made every single day for 90 days, the hope is that it will become a habit. So I've taught it in both places. Of course, we can't use matches, so we have figured out a different way to do it. But
Hannah, you've done this practice a long time. How do you choose images?
well, I think that sometimes I know what my longing is for what I want to have as my longing or intention for the box. And so then I have an idea of what the image is, and I go looking for it. But I think also sometimes the most powerful ones are when the images have chosen me. And I do that by, I'll look through magazines and cards and various things, and I'll find an image that really speaks to me, and I don't always know what it's saying exactly, and that's when I'll choose.
So, Laurie, there's 90 meditations, and I'm wondering how your experience of those little meditations.
The 90 meditations, for me, are a guide. When I read them in the morning, then I write them in a journal. And as I'm doing that, there's a particular phrase or word that resonates for me from each meditation. And as many times as I've done this practice, each time something else comes forward. And it helps me to deepen in my meditation practice and also to learn more and more about what's going on the inside for me. So it's always changing, and the meditations are poetic as well. That also resonates with me.
Pam, is there anything you want to tell our viewers about what appeals to you about the practice?
It's hard to put into words something that is so deep. And the practice has taken me to deep places in relationship to my God. There are some days, there might be many days in a row, where I don't feel anything. I go through the practice of looking at my box, lighting my match, watching it burn, and I don't necessarily feel something that day, but I know that organically something is going on, and it's a deep mystery to me. And I find that and I trust in that it's a really blessed thing. So there's so much. I mean, the choosing of the image or the image choosing me, as Diana so aptly said, and also the incorporating it into my prayer life, because it is a form of prayer for me without words. And that's very important, because in my tradition, words are everywhere in worship. And so to have a practice where I just sit for those few minutes with my box, and then I may get into the words in, the prayer book. But it's just all is enhanced by this practice, my time sitting with God.
If you have no idea of where you're going and you want to do this practice, what would you recommend?
Well, I think that the place to start is to realize that in some ways you're going to form a new habit for yourself. And so I remember, Gunilla, when we first started, my very first box didn't have any image at all, because nothing. I had a white box. I put a piece of white paper on it. But I think that putting an image or just paper on a box and then beginning the practice of lighting the match every day, remembering to get up, and it's helpful to do it at the same time each day, whether you do it I know some people do it at bedtime. I always do it shortly after I get up before I meditate. So now it's so become a habit that my day isn't complete unless I do this lighting. So making it into something that is not onerous but becomes a way of reminding you that you're connecting to something larger than yourself, and you're satisfying or looking towards either an intention that you want to some change in your life or bring into your life, or just a feeling of longing, of wanting greater connection to spirit or something of that sort, or patience or love. It's just a friendly way to begin being with the matches.
Oh, thank you so much for being here and sharing, and we're going to look at some matchboxes now.
Steady practice brings the heart and the will into alignment. A noticeable depth and maturity takes place in us. It happens subtly over time, the way apples turn red, and it is a wonderful thing we can share and celebrate.